Welcome back again. I decided to shave my head and face and throw on this new red shirt that I have. And I wanted to discuss something that I had brought up, which I had brought up in the channel introduction video. And I think I mentioned a few times, a few different instances, but I didn't go into like as much detail as I should after the channel introduction video. And one of the topics that I wanted to make this channel about was languages. And I had started studying, my native language is the first language I spoke, which isn't as good as my English, which is my second language. My native language is a Middle Eastern language. I don't want to get into the details of like what family or branch in linguistics the language is, because that would give away a lot. But I speak a Middle Eastern language and I speak English much better. I'm illiterate in the Middle Eastern language. So if you're familiar with languages, it's probably not Turkish, because they have the, I think it's called the English alphabet or the Roman alphabet in Turkey, with the Turkish language, since I believe Mustafa Kemal Ataturk is the individual who actually brought that about. But so I had a background with Spanish because Spanish was the language that I began learning in the 7th grade, and through I think the 10th grade is as far as I studied. And you know, I've gotten Rosetta Stone. I have like a lifelong purchase of the entire language learning for Rosetta Stone on the computer. And I have the app called Memrise, Memrise, and I also have Duolingo, which I'm sure you know how to spell, because Duolingo is pretty famous. If not, look into those if you're interested. But so I had a background with Spanish, and Spanish is an Indo-European language. And yes, the background of Spanish goes to like ancient Rome and Latin. And English is a Germanic language, but because of like the history of what had happened with around the instances of when the Romans they were transitioning, I believe, if I get this wrong, I'm sorry. But so they were transitioning, I wouldn't call it a transition, but there was the change from a Roman Republic to a Roman Empire, and around a little earlier than, I believe, they had entered England or Britain, or what is the majority, I think, or like a given amount of the United Kingdom today. So there is a lot of connection from English to Spanish in a certain sense, and I think Spanish is really easy, but I have decided I will not continue with learning Spanish. I don't know if this is permanent. I might even learn Portuguese, but not Spanish. And I think I had the wrong mindset with learning Spanish to begin with. So that's a reason. But I have nothing against Spanish. I think it's very beautiful. I think it's very easy to learn. It seems easy. I got a certain amount forward with learning Spanish, but I never really took it that seriously. I've looked into German as well, because the first European country I visited after I was like a toddler, basically, the first European country was Germany. I visited as I think a 10-year-old. I visited Hanover, Germany, and then again when I was 12, I visited Hanover, Germany, because my uncle lived there and my aunt lived there, my father's brother, my father's sister. And I visited Munich, where my uncle had moved to after. I visited close to Switzerland, and I've been to Berlin on my own. So I have a little bit of a background with German, and if I remember correctly from what I've read, basically around, the Anglo-Saxon language, English, I think is from like around northwestern Germany and possibly Denmark. I don't want to get this wrong because I don't memorize very well, and I didn't get it clear in my mind. I didn't get it like understood logically as to what had happened in the history. But basically, around there are where the people who brought the language English, I think, double check this, okay? Don't quote me on this, but brought the English language to the British Isles, to England. And there were Celtic people, I believe, before that. So I like German. I might study German in the future. And I don't understand what makes German so difficult to so many people in the discussion. I'm not saying it's easy. If language learning at all were easy or something I was skilled at least earlier in my life, earlier than now, I wouldn't just have spoken like 2 languages because like my parents spoke to me in, my father and mother spoke to me in my first language, and then I went to school, and as a child, I think by 4 years old, I was speaking English as well. So I think language learning though is like, it's not just rote memorization or something like impossible. I don't think it's even rocket science. I just think it's a matter of going forward. And this is someone's, my perspective, in that I never really became trilingual. And I'm only, I don't know if this is the correct terminology, but I'm like monolingual as far as literacy. So I only know the English alphabet essentially, the Roman alphabet. Germany has like a similar alphabet. Almost everything is the same except some different, I forget what they're called, but some different marks. Polish, Turkish, Vietnamese, they use the Roman alphabet. And then most of Europe except for the Cyrillic. Anyways, so I have to learn about linguistics. I have to pay more attention. I just took one linguistics course, a single linguistics course at UCLA, which was really interesting and I really enjoyed. Though, I'm ruling out at the moment the Spanish language and I guess the Latin branch or Latin-based branch, the Romance languages. And I'm not going to go further at the moment in the, I guess, Germanic languages. I'm interested in Swedish. I really am. And I have an interest, of course, in the Romance languages. I just, I think I've looked at French a little bit. I've not really looked too much at Italian, but like Romanian, like the Romance languages are not for me at this moment, for various reasons. Even though I'm from close to where there are Spanish speakers and increasingly, I believe, Portuguese speakers, like at a stone's throw. So so I wanted to move away from that, and what influenced me with the language that I picked, and this is the longest introduction before I actually get to the language that I want to learn, the language that I wanted to learn is, I don't know how to pronounce it accurately, Malay, which I believe from my limited research is spoken in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Brunei, and in Singapore. Malay, from my limited research again, is an Austronesian language related to, for instance, Tagalog in the Philippines, which I've been to the Philippines now, and I didn't realize how beautiful Tagalog sounds. I didn't think much of Tagalog when I was younger, like in my teenage years, and maybe into my early 20s. And then I didn't hear much, not Tagalog, sorry. I think then it was Cebuano, which I believe is also an Austronesian language. But I hope I get the name of the languages correct. But I think there was a Black Eyed Peas song. I don't know if he's speaking like Ilocano. But anyways, so I think Austronesian languages, especially after this previous trip a few months back when I went to the Philippines, Tagalog is so beautiful. I love how they speak. I love how they sound. It just causes me, like, it removes anxiety from me. I don't know, like, if it's like an island thing or what it is, but it sounds like a really calming and relaxing language. So I wanted to move forward with an Austronesian language, but to be honest, this isn't the exact process that went through my mind. What happened when I decided on Malay is I realized there's like a big presence for YouTube and of course population within Indonesia, and I had heard before two things. Okay, so I had heard previously, like in the past, that if you learn a language, it becomes like, even as an adult or possibly especially as an adult, if you learn a language, it becomes easier to learn different languages or like to learn another language in the future. And I had heard that the language of Indonesia, which is how I didn't know Malay is the language of Indonesia, but I had heard that the language of Indonesia is one of the easiest, or like among the easiest languages to learn on earth. I think languages which have been around for like a long time, I think there's a language called Esperanto or something like that, which is like made recently by people, but by humans. But I'm talking about like languages that have like a longer background. So anyways, I was very pleasantly surprised when I checked Wikipedia and I found out 4 different nations speak Malay. And from my research, I think on Google, the difference in how they sound to each other is like the difference between, I think, this is, if I recall correctly, is the difference between British English and like Australian English or something like that. I think that was the explanation. So easy language, 4 nations speak the language, as far as I know, easy language, and 4 nations speak the language. And then I can continue with learning languages and be like, maybe one day, someday I can be a polyglot, but I can at least be trilingual possibly, or like whatever is like 4 languages. Like I said, I also have a strong affinity for the sound of Tagalog. It's like such a beautiful language, and I believe Tagalog is somewhat closely related to the languages of those 4 to Malay. What else was I gonna say about this process? Oh, also, I think in the mind, possibly in the physical brain, and the way we relate to life, and how we live. Once you learn a language in one branch of a language family, I think you begin to understand the differences. Possibly, I don't know. I'm not an expert, obviously. I'm like below a beginner. I have like an average understanding of this sort of process, but average because I think most humans don't end up learning a language in their lives which they didn't learn as like a child. There are many who have. There are many different individuals who have, though. So anyways, there's also different languages in Southeast Asia and East Asia have become increasingly interesting to me. I actually was admitted for my post-baccalaureate, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. My English isn't even that great, to be honest. It should be like higher level. Though I was admitted to the post-baccalaureate program, which I was interested in twice. I was planning on doing like a dual degree with like possibly a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts component. Though not to give away all the information, though the language that I was the major I was admitted to was actually Chinese studies, both instances when I was admitted, and I intended to focus a lot on learning Mandarin, I believe, would be the primary focus, with some history or like different levels of like business speaking, things like of the sort. So my second bachelor's was possibly going to be in Chinese studies, so possibly like Mandarin. But what happened was the first instance I sort of got like cold feet with the whole school thing, returning to university. And also, I guess I lucked out because my mother, her condition, her cancer, got actually like incredibly worse very quickly after I went to orientation for the second bachelor's degree. And when I applied recently, my plans changed, which I mentioned in another video like a week or so ago. So yeah, that's the plan moving forward. This isn't the biggest update, but I believe on Memrise and on Duolingo, and possibly, I don't think I checked Rosetta Stone, though I believe on Duolingo and Memrise, the two phone apps I have for language learning, I believe they have Malay. And yeah, so that's sort of my decision moving forward. And I should mention another reason, my cousin on my father's side, my father's sister's, my aunt on my father's sister, her older son, he studied in Malaysia as well, and I believe he got his bachelor's degree there in Kuala Lumpur, the Kuala Lumpur area. So yeah, I always wanted to experience that part of the world. And I mean, I guess I went to the Philippines and I went to Vietnam, but I didn't want that to be the limit of my understanding of Southeast Asia. And I want to go beyond travel alone. And I think language is a great thing. One thing, I don't know if I mentioned this on this channel or not, though there are two things, especially, or like maybe three things, I find like different individuals care about a lot. The first thing is like your appearance. So like I'm really out of shape, I'm really fat. Obviously, I have high body fat, like in the like low 40s%, I think, if my scale is correct. But so one is appearance, like, you know, the physical shape you're in, especially. But two things that are more like on the academic and life experience sort of group is one, when you can speak a person's language, and especially if you can speak pretty well. But even with Spanish, when I used to try, though I'm possibly done with Spanish, though when I would try, I would get a much better response, I think, or like an increased amount of time that the person was interested. I think is the reality of it, in my experience. And also travel. So like when you travel somewhere and you've been to like an actual nation someone is from, I think they have a much better response, or the individual would have like a much better response, or like the group or whoever, if they see you somewhere else, like outside of their home nation, or you know, their father or mother's nation, their parents' nation. So these three things I find, because I bring this up because if you act like an egghead, sort of like I do, I think, I didn't realize, but my background in politics and history, and like a little bit with law, seems to like infuriate people, you know? So I always, or like individuals, and I always was like, I should have just become like a doctor. I should have gotten like an MD or something like that, because there's like less argument to be had, I guess, because people possibly get like angry with doctors as well, or like surgeons, though yeah, I don't want to, being a surgeon would be like insanely difficult for me, because I don't want to be too responsible with someone's like life and how long they live, though I find it extremely noble, especially after I saw what happened with my mother and like various surgeries, and her what her doctors were able to do for her. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the profession. But so anyways, I think with languages, I guess I'm going with Malay. And I wanted to make this video to like sort of update my situation with languages. And oh, also I've been listening to Arabic music a lot, but I'm not going to move forward too much with getting better with Arabic. I should have, I shouldn't put it like that. Or like I already know Arabic, or I don't. So, anyways, yeah. So that's the plan so far. And also on my list of languages that might be sort of out of left field in a sense. If I have the name of the language correctly, there's an African language called Bembe, I think, which is a sub-Saharan African language. So yeah, it sounds like pretty obvious after I said that. But so I plan to learn Bembe also, and Malay at this point, possibly Tagalog or Thai. And I don't know. Usually I think people who are like individuals are like into learning like Indo-European languages, or like focusing on like European languages specifically. My background, I can mention this. I have reason to believe my mother's ancestry is actually Dravidian, though she was born in the Middle East and her like ancestors are primarily Middle Eastern. But I've read on Wikipedia there's like a genetic link between certain parts of the Middle East and South Asia, like India specifically. So yeah, I'm also interested in, it was Hindi, but Dravidian languages and South Asian languages. But without getting into too many details about South Asia and my affinity for learning those languages in that group. So yes, the plan is to begin moving forward with Malay and see how far I can go. This was my very long-winded explanation of what my plans are at the moment and what I hope to stick to and move forward with and not go back on. As far as language learning, thank you so much. Have a great day or night or whatever part of the Earth's rotation you're at. Bye.